Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Uh, today we're going to talk about uh, read from Surah 9, Surah 10, verses 26 onwards. So we're going to read, um, this is Quran, the Final Testament by Dr. Rashad Khalifa, in case you didn't know. All right. Oh, that's what Edward likes to do. Um, so Surah 10, verse 26. Heaven and hell are eternal. For the righteous, the reward will be multiplied manifold. Their faces will never experience any deprivation or shame. These are the dwellers of paradise. They abide therein forever. As for those who earn sins, their requital is equivalent to their sin. Humiliation is their lot, and no one beside God can protect them. Their faces will seem overwhelmed by masses of dark night. They will be the dwellers of hell. They abide therein forever. The idols disown their idol worshippers. Idols disown their idol worshippers. Idols disown their worshippers. On the day when we summon them all, we will say to those who worshipped idols, we have summoned you together with your idols. We will have them confront each other, and their idols will say to them, we had no idea that you idolized us. God suffices as a witness between us and you that we were completely unaware of you worshiping us. That is when each soul will examine everything it had done. They will be returned to God, their rightful Lord and Master, and the idols they had fabricated will disown them. Say, who provides for you from the heavens and the earth? Who controls all the hearing and the eyesight? Who produces the living from the dead and the dead from the living? Who is in control of all things? They would say, God. Say, why then do you not observe the commandments? Such is God, your rightful Lord. What is there after the truth except falsehood? How could you disregard all this? This is what your Lord's decision does to those who choose to be wicked. They cannot believe. Reflect on your idols. Say, can any of your idols initiate creation, then repeat it? Say, God initiates the creation, then repeats it. Say, does any of your idols, does any of your idols guide to the truth? Say, God guides to the truth. Is one who guides to the truth more worthy of being followed, or one who does not guide and needs guidance for himself? What is wrong with your judgment? Most of them follow nothing but conjecture, and conjecture is no substitute for the truth. God is aware of everything they do, fully aware of everything they do. Only God can author the Quran. This Quran could not possibly be authored by other than God. It confirms all previous messages and provides a fully detailed scripture. It is infallible, for it comes from the Lord of the universe. Okay, God willing, I'm going to stop here and talk about the verses we read briefly. And first thing that we notice in verse 26, it talks about the eternity of heaven and hell. And so, you know, it's important for us to know as students of the Quran that nowhere in the Quran do we find any that, heaven or hell is like a temporary spot for, the believers or the disbelievers. If you end up going to hell, you're going to burn in hell and suffer in hell forever. And if you're going to, be blessed by going to paradise, then you will end up living there forever, for eternity. There's uh, there's no ending to your destiny. Once you attain a rank, you stay there, and everything. Yet we see that people who claim to be, uh, claim to follow the Quran, have, following all these additional sources of Hadith and Sunnah, and they believe that, they'll pay for their sins for like a certain amount of time, and then Muhammad will intercede on their behalf, or, their son who was, who memorized Quran or something. But we know all that is nonsense, and God says, it's forever. Uh, I mean, that's mentioned so many times in the Quran, so it's amazing that, people who know the Quran even will go against such clear verses when they say that they'll just, live there for a little bit, and then Muhammad will intercede for them and stuff like that. But I mean, for us, what this really means is, this is our final chance, and this worldly life compared to the hereafter is nil, because this is eternal. And so, I mean, we really have to make the most out of our life in this world. Every second counts, and I mean, it's amazing when we see people waste time in this world, and on the day of judgment, I mean, these people will be sorry and remorseful because they just wasted their time doing meaningless things. And if they only knew how precious these moments were, obviously, if they truly believed, obviously they wouldn't be doing all of that. Uh, so, we have to be aware of that, and spend our day remembering God, commemorating God, worshiping Him, and striving in the cause of God. And anything that has nothing to do with God and nothing to do with growing your soul is a waste of time, as we know. So we have to be mindful of that. And we see that the faces on that day of the dwellers of hell that God has described here are covered with masses of dark night. I mean, that's a lot of darkness. And when we talk about depression in this world, I mean, this is like, that's like nothing. And this is, I think, really the definition of like severe, you know, uh, sadness and darkness, in which they will be, and they're not going to have any kind of hope or anything, because they're stuck in there for eternity. And that's just really uh, sad for them, because they made the wrong choice. uh, every They're there because they worshipped idols. People have idols of some sort. And on the day of judgment, when these people are confronted by their idols, the idols will disown the people who idolize them, because they would have no clue. They never, even in this world, when people idolize other people, they most of the time they don't have a clue that people are idolizing them. But people are idolizing them. And even the people who idolize other people don't know they're idolizing them, because on the day of judgment, they're going to be, no, we didn't idolize him. I swear I never was an idol worshiper. And then, so but it's not that you have to be aware of idol worship for idol worship to be counted as idol worship. If you're worshiping an idol, whether you're aware of it or not, you're worshiping idols, and that's what it comes down to. So um, we have to be mindful of that. And the people who were idolized, they had no idea that these people were being idolized. And I mean, whether it's the rightful idols or the wrong idols, like Jesus, being prophet of God, had no idea that these people were idolizing him long after he died. And so he will disown all these people. So will Muhammad, and all the other idols that people idolize, that they think that they will help them. And in fact, like, their idols are completely unaware. Like, you know when we talk about, like, you see stupid things like, you know Jesus loves you or Jesus cares for you, stuff like that. Jesus has no idea like who you are, where you live and whatnot. I mean, he doesn't, and so on the day of judgment, I mean, these people are going to be so ashamed that, they were just following falsehood and they just wasted their life believing in lies. And now, this is eternal. Um, so this is why, we have to remember that we should worship God alone, as much as possible. God should be our God most of the day. If God is not on our minds, like at least 51% of the day, every day, we're not going to make it. That's like the minimum that we have to remember God. And, I mean, that's why we see that people who worship God are going to hell because with God they have some other idols. So if something else you're thinking about 51% of the day, guess what? That thing is your idol, right? And that's why we see that these people who believe in God, they know that God created the heavens and the earth. He controls the hearing and the eyesight. He produces the dead for the living. He's in control of all things. Their answer is God, right? And then it says, "Why then do you not observe the commandments? Why then do you not worship God alone? Worship God alone because He controls everything. Make Him your God." Um, and so, but it says this is what God's decision does to those who choose to disbelieve. They can never um, they can never believe. Even after reading these verses, they will still not believe. And that's why God's telling people to reflect on God's creation, reflect on their idols. God creates and repeats the creation. I mean, every day. I mean, it's amazing how God repeats the creation if we just think about that process. I mean, it's mind blowing. And these idols, obviously, no idol can do that. I mean, so people have to worry about that. I mean, people have to reflect on that. And then, God says that they follow nothing but conjecture, and conjecture is no substitute for truth. People guess and make inferences and assumptions when it comes to religion, and that's not acceptable in our religion. God has given us the clear book, and this talks about it here. So, verse 37, I'm going to start reading again. Verse 37 says, "Only God can author the Quran. This Quran could not possibly be authored by other than God. It confirms all previous messages and provides a fully detailed scripture. It is infallible, for it comes from the Lord of the universe." So it's infallible, for it comes from the Lord of the universe. So God is telling us that conjecture is no substitute for the truth, but this Quran is from God, and it's from no one other than God. It confirms all previous messages. So previous scriptures that we have received, the Quran confirms it and provides a fully detailed scripture. So it confirms everything that we need to believe in from the previous scriptures. It confirms all of that, and it provides us a fully detailed scripture. So everything that we need to observe in our lifetime, all the commandments, all the duties, all the laws, they're all mentioned in the Quran. What's not mentioned in the Quran is the details of how to observe the practices of our religion, uh, because they were given to Abraham. But those practices themselves are mentioned, and how to do those practices, and everything else, and how to live our life, how to eat, all our laws and everything is mentioned in the Quran. This is a perfectly, completely, fully detailed scripture, and we have to believe that as submitters. If we need to be counted among people who do not worship idols and not blaspheme against God, you have to remember that this is a fully detailed scripture that God has revealed, and it's complete, perfect, and fully detailed, as God tells us in Surah 6, verse 114. Um, If they say he fabricated it, verse 38, if they say he fabricated it, say, then produce one surah like these and invite whomever you wish, other than God, if you're truthful. Indeed, they have rejected this. without studying and examining it, and before understanding it. Thus did those before them disbelieve. Therefore, note the consequences for the transgressors. Some of them believe in this scripture, while others disbelieve in it. Your Lord is fully aware of the evildoers. If they reject you, then say, I have my works and you have your works. You are innocent of anything I do, and I'm innocent of anything you do. Some of them listen to you, but can you make the deaf hear, even though they cannot understand? Humans freely choose their paths. Some of them look at you, but can you guide the blind, even though they do not see? God never wrongs the people, it is the people who wrong their own souls. On the day when he summons all of them, they will feel as if they lasted in this world 1 hour of the day, during which they met. Losers indeed are those who disbelieved in meeting God and chose to be misguided. Whether we show you some of the retribution we promised them or terminate your life before that, to us is your ultimate return. God witnesses everything they do. To each community, a messenger. After their messenger comes, they are judged equitably without the least injustice. Okay. They challenge, when will this prophecy come to pass if you are truthful, if you're telling the truth? The messenger possesses no power. Say, I possess no power to harm myself or benefit myself. Only what God wills takes place. Each community has a predetermined lifespan. Once their interim comes to an end, they cannot delay it by 1 hour, nor advance it. Say, whether his retribution comes to you by night or by day, why are the transgressors in such a hurry? If it does happen, will you believe then? Why should you believe then? You used to challenge it to come. It will be said to the transgressors, taste the eternal retribution. Are you not requited precisely for what you have earned? They challenge you to prophecy. Is this really what will happen? Say, yes, indeed, by my Lord, this is the truth and you can never escape. What price faith? If any wicked soul possessed everything on earth, it would readily offer it as ransom. They will be ridden with remorse when they see the retribution. They will be judged equitably, without the least injustice. Absolutely. To God belongs everything in the heavens and the earth. Absolutely. God's promise is truth, but most of them do not know. He controls life and death, and to him you will be returned. O people, enlightenment has come to you herein from your Lord, and healing for anything that troubles your hearts, and guidance and mercy for the believers. Joy for the believers. Say, with God's grace and with his mercy, they shall rejoice. This is better than any wealth they can accumulate. Inshallah. Okay, so going back to the verses that I read, first, God has issued a challenge that, for people who think they fabricated it, produce one surah like these, and like, for example, this surah, Surah 10, is a very long surah. It has 109 verses, and all these surahs are mathematically composed, and it's one of the surahs that is like, in the almost like well, it's kind of like in between the missing Bismillah and the two Bismillahs in 27, and so it's uninitialed, and there's like so many other parameters, the number of times God is mentioned. So all of these parameters that are in this surah, obviously make it a challenging situation. Like, if you think that this is fabricated, then just produce, that's a good challenge. Just produce one surah and replace that with this surah, and make sure that the mathematical miracle still works and all the parameters are the same. Can they do that? Nobody can do that, you know. The moment you do it, all of those things that for the mathematical code will start to fall apart. And that's why they cannot produce one surah like these, as God says. And so this is God's uh, awesome miracle, and that every letter is divinely controlled and calculated. And this should really assure our hearts without a doubt. And you know it says, indeed they have rejected this without studying and examining it and before understanding it. When you talk to people about the mathematical miracle of the Quran or the truth, they don't normally, I mean, we've seen it, they don't normally go ahead and, okay, I'm going to go and examine everything. No, it's, you tell them about the message, they just go Google, the Quran, or they'll just Google Rashad Khalifa or something, and then they come up with all these lies. Like, oh, we found this is what it's all about. Boom, we reject it. So they disbelieve and reject without studying and examining and before understanding, you know, and that's actually, as bad as them examining it. But, before examining it, you didn't even give it a chance. You didn't even try to see if it was the truth or not, and they pay for it. Obviously, it comes with a price. Who's gonna lose in the hereafter? Obviously these people who wrong their souls. That's why God says that humans are freely able to choose their paths, you know, but we can remind people, but they say you can bring the horse to a pond, I believe, but you cannot make them drink, right? So it's like the same kind of analogy. Um, you can give them the message, give them the book, give them the Quran, try to explain it to them, but you can't guide them. You can God says you cannot guide the ones you love, and it could be your parents, your siblings, whatever. And but you can do your best, but if they choose not to be guided, it says they chose to be misguided, right? People make a choice to follow or not to follow. So when they make that choice, then they're blinded, and they are literally not literally blinded, but I mean they're as an analogy, I mean, of a blind person, I mean, you can do whatever in front of the blind person, they cannot see a thing. If they're blind, they're fully blind, they cannot see anything. So you show them all the miracles, you show them all the proofs, you come from all different angles. If they're blocked, they're not gonna see anything. And we know that they wrong their own souls. God is not the one who wronged them, they're the ones who wrong themselves. And they'll realize on the day of judgment how short this life was and how they wasted their time in this world, because they disbelieved in meeting God, they disbelieved in the day of judgment, so they're not guided. It really all comes down to our belief in the hereafter, and our our certainty about the hereafter and certainty about the day of judgment. If we're not certain, we're gonna end up with the hypocrites. And so we have to believe from the bottom of our hearts that the hereafter is real and it's going to happen, and we prepare accordingly. If you don't think you're being tested, and you think this whole thing is just playing games, then you're just going to be doing that, making playing games. You're going to be more mindful of the people and what they say and how you appear to others, and you won't care about what God thinks of you or what you're doing, and you'll end up blundering, and then you'll eventually start to believe even that you're righteous while doing all of that, um, because people, when people don't believe, that's what happens. The doubts take over and people turn into hypocrites. So number one, we have to believe in the hereafter, and be certain about it. God has given us the proofs, and we have to be sure about that and think about it and prepare for it and ask God to help us and forgive us. And I think verse 46 is uh, kind of comforting too, because it says, whether we show you some of the retribution we promise them or terminate your life before that, they're going to return to God eventually. So God will judge them, you know. So whether we see it or not, you know, these people are going to be judged by God for sure. There's no doubt about it. Everybody pays for everything. And so, I mean, God overlooks a lot of our sins, you know, but obviously, you know, people still insist on going to hell and they insist on being misguided. And idol worship is the only unforgivable offense. So no matter, you know, how much we abuse God's mercy and God's forgiveness, you know, these people end up making it to hell because they choose to follow that path. And then the verses after that remind us that the messengers possess no power. You know, any messenger from God, whether it's Muhammad or Jesus or anyone, you know, they had no special powers. They were all messengers. They were all humans. And God was the one that allowed them to have certain miracles, for example, but they were nobody. They're just humans like us, and they don't even possess any power to harm themselves or benefit themselves. And this is important for us to remember. Like, you know, these messengers could not even guide their own children. We know Noah's example; he could not guide his own son, and so they can't benefit themselves. They can't even guide their children. I mean, they can advise them, but they eventually end up making the decision to believe or not. And they don't know the future, obviously, and we know that, you know, no messenger knows the future. There's certain information that God reveals to the messengers, and they can deliver that. But other than that, I mean, they can guess that this might happen, but it might not happen because they don't know the future. But what we do know is the day of judgment, the hereafter. And and then I think verse 54 really puts into perspective how valuable our faith in God is. You know, if a wicked soul possessed everything on earth, you know, imagine, could you put a price to everything on earth? You can't. I mean, it's amazing. But if you had even had that much money and you wanted to, you would be willing to give it away just to save yourself an entire uh, world's worth of wealth, you know, all the wealth in the world. You know, if you start to combine money from every person in the world, everything that has a dollar amount to it or something, I mean, imagine how much money that's going to be. And if you had that much money, you know, all worth of all the countries and all the land in the world, and all the gold and all the silver and everything, and you wanted to offer that to, you know, bail yourself from the misery and the trouble in the hereafter, you cannot do it. So the only thing that can save you is your faith. So how valuable it is for us to work on ourselves and have that faith so we can save ourselves. And because God says that absolutely to God belongs everything in the heavens and the earth, absolutely God's promise is the truth. So we have to remember that God's promise is the truth, and our heaven and hell, it starts here and it continues in the day of judgment and the hereafter. And we have to believe in that promise. We have to be certain about God's revelations. And, you know, if you believe in God, you lead a righteous life, you don't, you know, create any idols in your life, God is your God, then God promises you a perfect life now and forever. You know, people suffer in this world because they they ignore that, you know, they disregard it sometimes, and they obviously will not get to that point. But if you do, God says that this Quran will provide healing for anything that troubles your hearts, guidance and mercy for the believers, and joy for the believers. God promises perfect happiness to all the worshippers who are truly worshiping God alone, not those who are doing show offs, you know, and you know, how do I put it? You know, people who are not absorbed in the worldly life, and you know, trying to portray an image of happiness, but true happiness that comes from the heart. That's the kind of happiness that God provides to true believers who truly believe in God alone, who are not looking for any sort of recognition or authority in this world, and who are doing everything just to please God alone. God promises them perfect happiness, and they're gonna have it in their life. That's His promise, and that means that they're gonna have perfect health, perfect wealth, and perfect joy and peace in their life. They're gonna have no financial problems, no marital problems, no diseases, no headaches, nothing. And inshallah, we should all try to examine ourselves and try to fix our life. So if there's anything unquranic in our life, we try to fix it. So God willing, we can be one of those people, that will make it on the day of judgment, and we will be thankful and content with all the works that we did in this world. I think, like, imagine, like, I mean, like, you can't even, there's like no analogy that comes close, but really, it's like, you go to the exam, and like, you're not prepared, and then you're afraid. It's kind of like that, but it's a lot worse. Like, imagine on the day of judgment, like when these people really see God, and they're like, oh, the messengers brought the truth, everything was real, but I didn't do anything, and I didn't believe, and then you can't go back. So, but it's worse than any kind of failure that anyone can ever experience, worse than any kind of sadness that anyone can ever experience, when they find out that how wrong they were on the day of judgment. And then on top of that, they will be told that God abhorrence towards them is far worse than their own abhorrence towards themselves. And there's just no nothing that comes close to that in equivalence. And same for the believers. God says joy. God promises joy for the believers. In 58 it says, with God's grace and His mercy they shall rejoice. This is far better than any wealth they can accumulate. So all the wealth that you can accumulate, this is far better than all of it, because all the wealth in the world is not going to bring you happiness. Happiness is the quality of your soul. And so the more you grow your soul, the more you worship God, your soul will grow, and you'll feel happy, and it's like a natural intoxication, the real intoxication, which is comes from worshiping God. It's not the same as what people seek now with drugs and alcohol and all that stuff, right? It's true happiness that will radiate from your soul, and you will be happy. And of course, you'll have no problems in your life, but that doesn't mean you're going to be a millionaire, but you're going to have all your needs met. Basically, you're not going to have any sort of problems in your life. And but that's just for this world. I mean, but we know this world is temporary, but the real life, which is the eternal hereafter, I mean, that's I mean, really something that we need to worry about more than this life, because even if you didn't have anything in this life, if you had a comfortable life in the hereafter, obviously you wouldn't want anything else. God says you'll never get bored, so you'll never want another substitute. So inshallah, we should really try to practice as much as we can, and think about God as much as possible, so we can grow our souls and make it, inshallah. That's it. If you guys have any questions or comments, you can go ahead. Thank you.
Mashallah, thank you, Salman. You explained everything, so
Shukran.
how we're gonna have
Thank
questions?
you, mashallah. Hmm.
MashaAllah. Sorry, which one was the last verse?
58.
50.
Assalamualaikum. Saman, with verse 27, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. As for those who earn sins, their requital is equivalent to their sin. Humiliation is their lot, and no one beside God can protect them. Their faces will seem overwhelmed by the masses of dark night. They will be the dwellers of hell. They abide therein forever. When it says their faces will be seen overwhelmed by the masses of dark night, meaning, does that mean that masses is lots of people? Their faces will seem overwhelmed by masses of dark night. Dark masses of dark night.
Sorry, when you say masses, what do you mean? You said something
Yeah.
about
So the
people?
part where I'm question with is it says their faces will seem overwhelmed by the masses of dark night.
Mm-hmm.
When we say masses, uh, I'm I'm not sure what does it mean. Masses of people?
I think it means like lots of like layers of dark night. Like,
Layers. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Masha Allah. Thank you.
Okay. So anybody else has any comments?
Yeah, inshallah. I have a comment on verse 31. Say, who provides for you from the heaven and the earth? Who controls all the hearing and the eyesight? Who produces the living from the dead and the dead from the living? Who is in control of all this? They would say, God. Say, why then do you not observe the commandments? Like so many people living is so called, some people have some kind of religion, right? And they say we all believe in God, um, but they they fail to reflect that who's in control, who's the absolute God. When we say La ilaha illallah, there is no God except God. This is the proclamation of our faith that actually there is no other entity in control of anything. People think, oh, okay, we just there is only one God, right? But never thinking about God's qualities. And that's why idol worship nullifies everything, because if we think, why do I think that any other entity or any other source can do anything other than God? God is doing everything, God is in control of everything. Without knowing this quality or believing, even though people will say, oh, yeah, but to have mind full of God's qualities will make us worship God alone. And this is so important because God, here is a rhetorical question from God. God knows that, you know, that you ask these questions, and they would say, God. And then God says, why then do you not observe the commandments? What is happening to you? If God is telling you to observe these commandments so you can redeem yourself, they are going by heedlessly, saying this is just um, all verbal, lip service. Not because the one who believes that the God who controls everything, the eyesight, the hearing, the provisions, produces the living from the dead and dead from the living. Who can do that? Can you create anything like that? It's just God wants us to reflect upon His creations and His
Hmm.
marvels all around us, and then reflect that should we not be observing all the commandments because He wants us to redeem ourselves? The commandments are for us not just to be, oh yeah, there is a God and He has sent this book and now it's okay. Majority, millions and millions or billions of Muslims are doing what? They're doing all kinds of vice and sin and calling other people infidels and kafar and this and that, while their own works are so bad, committing idol worship, committing all kinds of sin. There's such horrible news I hear from a certain country and see things, but they will be readily fighting against Qadianis or this, and they're calling them non-Muslim, the worst of the kafar. But their works, they think no matter how bad their works are, Muhammad, at the end, they are guaranteed salvation. This is Satan's biggest trick and biggest victory, to make people realize that there is a chance. There is a chance. No, actually, if you believe in, if you say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah anytime before death, you're saved. Same thing Christians say, um, that, you know, you will only go to heaven through Jesus. As long as you believe Jesus as your Savior and Lord, astaghfirullah, then you can, you only Christians are gonna go, those who believe in Jesus. And
Hmm.
Muslims say only those who believe in Muhammad. And that's
Hmm.
it. And no commandments are being observed. You know, that is the biggest victory of Satan, that he has made people believe
Hmm.
this kind of idolatrous
Yeah.
theology.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people who do even observe their the commandments, like so to speak, the practices and stuff. I mean, their religion is also is a social function. They do it as a social function and not to please God. Right. Hello.
Yeah, Masha Allah.
Okay.
That's right. No, I was listening.
Hmm. Okay. Ahmed, do you want to comment about anything? Also, Huda, if you like to comment.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Um, I think I wanted to say something about verse 27. Inshallah. Don't know if it's accurate. I'm still thinking through it.
Hmm.
uh, and Pamela commented as well.
Hmm.
As for those who earn sins, their requital is equivalent to their sin. Humiliation is their lot, and no one beside God can protect them. So I just want to talk about the sins. They earned their sins, and the
Mm.
requital is their sins. And we think about the obvious sins like stealing,
Hmm.
whatever. But what about the hidden sins or the not so obvious sins?
Hmm.
These people will become aware of them, and that's when the humiliation kicks in. For example, I'm gonna maybe make some people feel bad. For example, there was this person that joined the pen a couple of weeks ago, and this person, this individual, uh, searched for some stuff about Rashad Khalifa, and this individual knew that those things were just nonsense, just lies and untrue, or even even the truth was next to the lie. I mean, um, for example, if I say Jan turned left, or they say Jan turned left, but now the facts show that Jan actually turned right. But then this individual insists on spreading the rumor that Jan turned left, even though the fact is Jan turned right. This is an example. I'm just saying.
Hmm.
And what I'm trying to say is that's a sin committing. They are
Hmm.
intentionally spreading lies, like
Lies.
deceit, but in their mind they are thinking they're doing something good. Like, I don't know. I mean, you have to be insane or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be their advocate, because I personally feel embarrassed when I'm wrong.
Hmm.
I feel guilty. I feel, whoa, wait a minute, like shame. I feel ashamed. Like, I was wrong. I need to correct this. I contact people. About, yeah, yeah, hello, yeah, about that. Yeah, I was wrong, and it's actually
Hmm.
this and that. I try to correct myself because I feel embarrassed. But it seems that these people, they don't have this awareness. For example, when Adam and Eve realized they were naked, they gained that awareness or whatever.
Hmm.
If that's positive or negative, what I don't know. But
Hmm. Hmm.
the same could be about these certain things. God controls if we feel embarrassed, and then the embarrassment leads to the right choice to make us take heed. But I don't think sinners or other worshippers or disbelievers or those destined to hell have this awareness. They don't have this mechanisms like embarrassment.
Hmm.
I think that's why
Yeah,
they
when
can
God,
spread lies. And then
hmm
on the day of judgment,
God
as
says
for those
indeed.
who earned sins, their requital is equivalent to their sin. Humiliation is their lot. So on the day of judgment, everyone becomes aware. Everyone becomes aware, and that's when they feel the humiliation and the embarrassment that, oh,
Hmm
I did this. I lied. I'm the one who did the lying. Right? They will be aware.
hmm
And then it goes back to the next part of the verse. Their faces will seem overwhelmed by masses of dark night. That's the embarrassment. They are so tormented by their embarrassment. Maybe that's what it means in the second, when someone's face become like really dark, or it's like an allegory. I don't know. But yeah, the main part was the first comment I made. So, yeah, in the day of judgment, they will be aware of their sins. But right now in this world, they are not aware of them.
hmm
Like the embarrassment part. To them, it seems like fun or whatever. They're poking fun or they are enjoying themselves. But again, I'm not gonna advocate, be their advocate. I don't care what the reasoning is.
hmm
To me,
Yeah,
they are
when
sinners.
When God says, indeed their hearts are shielded by their sins, so they commit so many sins that it just becomes like second nature and they don't care. They become desensitized to their own sinning, and
Yeah,
then it doesn't
precise.
feel like it's a sin. And Satan adorns their works in their eyes.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question. I actually have two questions, but I can ask one and then wait until other people chance, and then I can ask again.
Hmm Yes.
Um, the question is in verse 47. I seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. To each community, a messenger. After their messenger comes, they are judged equitably without the least injustice. So it says after each community, we know Rashad came 1400 years after. So would that 1400 years be one community? And then after Rashad came, then that's another community. To each community, a
hmm
messenger.
hmm
After their messenger come, and that I have a question about the other part too. After their messenger comes, they are judged equitably. So meaning, say for example, right after the Prophet Muhammad came, they are judged equitably. Right after Prophet Muhammad came, they would have been judged then, and would there have been a space of time, and then a messenger comes again, and then right after that messenger, we're judged again. So that's two questions.
hmm Right. So basically, actually, the Messenger of the Covenant actually explained these verses, and basically, the way they were kind of explained was that um, every community. Sorry, somebody's phone is beeping or something. So they're saying that every community receives a warner, and it says every community receives a warner or a messenger. This doesn't necessarily mean that a messenger who's commissioned by God will come to each and every congregation and each and every community, like will receive an authorized messenger from God. But it could also be like, let's say, in your community in New Brunswick, I guess, there's no messenger that God has sent, but God knows that you have the message, and He makes sure that you have conveyed it to them, right? So in that sense, you are kind of like a messenger, but not like and authorize the real messenger. And so God says, like, on the day of judgment, you will, the messenger, that he will be a witness among the people, and then uh, you will be a witness too. So let's say, there would be people that are disbelievers. I mean, you will be presented as a witness among them to prove that, yeah, you were there. You tried to give them the message, and they didn't accept it, or accepted it, or whatnot, and how they responded. So that's also something that, I mean, the community can apply to multiple people in that sense, and then the community can also apply. It depends on how you define the community, right? So it can also apply to, like, community in terms of a certain messenger that they had a community, but can also apply to, like, your community in terms of your time, era and time when you came, and also apply to the area you live. So it's really, I think to me, I just think it kind of like depends. I'm trying to find that audio where he talks about that.
Thanks, Salman. Yeah, actually, I haven't got through all the audios, so if you refer me, that'd be great. But God
Hmm.
willing, I'll try to get through all the audios.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that the explanation makes sense. Yes, they're judging. And if no one have a question, I still
Oh,
have
okay,
one
we
more
just
question.
so uh, okay.
Yeah, my question is on uh, verse 50. I see refuge God from Satan the rejected. Say, whether his retribution comes to you by night or by day, why are the transgressors in such a hurry? So the part I don't understand is why are the transgressors in such a hurry?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Yeah, verse 50. I see refuge God from Satan rejected. Say, whether his retribution comes to you by night or by day, why are the transgressors in such a hurry? I tried to
Mm-hmm.
read the verse before and the verse after, but I didn't understand what the last part meant. Why are the
Mm-hmm.
transgressors in such a hurry?
Mm-hmm. Does anyone want to answer that besides me?
Okay, I'll try.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay. Just 1 minute, please. So most of the time, you know, people would challenge when messengers come. They bring good news as well as warnings, right? And warnings will include if you will reject the messenger, something bad is going to happen, like the time of Noah or what happened to the community of Lot, right? And the good news is that, mashallah, if you accept the message, you will go to heaven and the good life in this world too. But then most of the time, they because the disbelievers, they will challenge, okay, the retribution, when is that retribution going to come, or when will that prophecy come to pass? So simply they would challenge the messenger because they would not believe a word. um, and then God says, say whether his retribution comes to you by night or by day, why are the transgressors in such a hurry? If it does happen, will you believe then? Why should you believe then? You used to challenge it to come. It will be said to the transgressors, taste the eternal retribution. Are you not requited precisely for what you have earned? They challenge you to prophesy. Is this really what will happen? Say, yes, indeed, by my Lord, this is the truth, and you can never escape. So the problem is, a lot of people do not believe in the hereafter. And if the retribution is whether it's in this world or in the hereafter, that is the truth. And they would question that, obviously. That's why they reject the truth. Basically, that's what it is. And every time a messenger came, they were challenged with rhetorical questions like that. Oh, yeah, so why don't you bring that now? You know, um, because they would not believe that this is going to happen. So then God says it might not happen right now, or it might happen daytime or nighttime, doesn't matter when it will happen, but it will surely will happen. That's how I understand it.
Thank you, Sister Najat.
Because if you um, see the word, why are the transgressors in such a hurry? They're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Why don't you just bring it upon us? Because that shows complete disbelief in it. I mean, a retribution coming from the sky is not going to be something people would really want to see. But that shows the utter disbelief in the message, that they would rather challenge the retribution, or um, you know, they want to see the curse or whatever the retribution, rather than believing and even kind of giving it a chance. They're rushing to the, like, okay, let's see what happens. That shows like not even a hint of belief, or or little bit of acceptance that this could be right. Complete utter disbelief in the message.
Thank you. I understand it. I understand what you're saying now. Yes.
Okay, Masha Allah.
Yeah. With that verse, I guess you have to read all the verses, like 49 to 53, to really
Yeah,
understand.
it's like
Yeah.
the complete ignorance, like telling a child that um, the consequences of something, and they rather not even take a look at the lesson, or what education they're getting, rather challenging the retribution. It's like complete ignorance, lack of any reflection. They're not even looking at the part of the message, rather than, okay, okay, let's see what happens to us. If even if there was like a slight, eh, even if like a hint of believing, that is scary, right? But they had no fear whatsoever of retribution. Well, that's, most people are like that. Even they believe in some kind of religion, they do not believe in the hereafter, or a retribution can come here anytime, any day, because God has a predetermined time for everything. It might not, even like sometimes messengers would scream like, where is that victory? Like they get so frustrated from the rejection of people that they would scream, and say, God, where is that victory? And God has a time planned for everything, even the retribution, and He lets them. God says He lets the leaders of certain community commit the vast corruption, even, you know, and then there is a predetermined time. There is a reason we don't understand what, why certain community or individuals are given like a rope um, to do what they're capable of doing wrong, and then it could suddenly happen when they least expect it. So instead of listening to what the messenger is saying, good stuff, good news, they, in a way, they're making fun, like, let's see, when would this happen? Like, really, would you, if they had any idea or any a little bit belief in it, they would at least give it a chance. But no, it's complete rejection.
Masha Allah, thank you. Yeah, after you explained that, then I realized that that part of the verse 50, that I was questioning, you have to read from 49 to 53 to totally understand it.
Right. Mashallah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you again.
I had a suggestion. I was wondering what you guys feel about that. So, I was thinking, when we started the study, like initially, like we set this time because there was people like from Turkey and stuff like that. We thought, they wanted to participate, and there this was a time that was like more suitable for them to be able to join us. And but I was wondering, like, based on the crowd we have now, how do you guys feel if maybe we made it a little bit later, like maybe instead of 9 we started at like 11 or 11:30 maybe? Would that be good or bad?
I would say either we do it in the evening or this time, because then
Right.
your entire Saturday in
Right.
between, you can't do anything in the morning or can't do anything
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of the day. We can
Yeah.
bring it to the evening again.
Well, I have an evening study at the masjid too,
Oh,
and then we also have the evening study for Australia at the same time. But that's okay. I mean, I was just thinking, for
you want
a
to
little
move
bit
it
early.
1 more hour,
Okay.
10 maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, yeah, we're open to anything. However, Salman, Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm.
We invite guests over, or we get invited over.
Right. Right.
So whatever time it is, it's probably the only day that we open to guests or open to
Mm-hmm.
go to guests, other people's
Mm-hmm.
home. So
Okay.
whatever time it is, at least if study can finish by, 5 o'clock New Brunswick time, finish,
Mm-hmm.
then we're good. We're open. We're good with anything anyone suggests.
Mm-hmm.
Consensus, yeah,
Inshallah.
yeah. And I do have a comment on 57. Um, when we read this particular verse, we feel like there's no need for a shrink, a psychologist.
Oh.
Yeah, the part where it says, I seek refuge in God from Satan rejected. O people, enlightenment has come to you hearing from your Lord, and healing for anything that troubles your heart, and guidance and mercy for the believers. I think for anyone who's listening out there, who's from different background, and
Hmm.
seeing psychologists and all the different therapists. I think reading the Quran just strengthens you in every way. And when I read this verse, then I think that there's no need for those people, for the most part. If you read the Quran and sincerely, God put understanding in your heart.
Yeah, mashallah. The healing only can come from God, no matter what medication you will use, or if you get sick, like Abraham said, when I get sick, He heals me. So, um, of course, all bad comes from us, all good comes from God. And the time is to heal, whether we took a medicine or not, healing only comes from God, mashallah.
So just to clarify that what you said, Sister Nujrat, God put all kind of healing for us in the plants and things like that. So we still take the plants as herbs as healing. We drink it, things like that. But at the same time, we pray to God. We just don't say, "Well, pray to God alone."
Right. Well, yeah. You see, when we get sick, right? Obviously, we did something wrong, and then God knows that people will get sick, right? And even like Abraham said, when I am sick, He heals me. That means he did get sick, even though he was never an idol worshiper. But things happen, right, in life. So we can we can take herbs or pharmaceuticals. That's a choice a person has to make, right? But the healing part is not coming from that. That we have to still acknowledge it is coming from God, that He provided these herbs for the healing. You know that we
Mashallah.
yeah that we might step in and out of God's kingdom. We make a mistake, obviously, then we open the door for Satan to afflict us. Affliction has happened to many prophets, and but He's the one who heals. Then He has provided these healing herbs, you know. Or if somebody prefers pharmaceuticals with side effects, whatever is their cup of tea, right? And that's why Rashad said in his audio that even you take Tylenol, say Bismillah, right? Don't give power to this pill that's going to heal you. We still say, we ask God for forgiveness and healing from Him. And then He has provided the meal and means. Just like, if it's really cold winter and uh, I say, I'm just going to go in a single t shirt outside because I'm protected. I'm not gonna get sick. I mean, you might not get sick, but you will become very, very uncomfortable, right? So God has provided us with means of we can have warm clothes. God talks about the clothes which protect us in the heat, clothes which protect us from the cold, right? The sheepskin or whatever, the animal leather, this and that. It's the same way. All the herbs, mashallah, have so much healing in it from God. Yeah. I mean, you can sever all ties and wait for it to. This really is according to the degree of one's faith as well. I'm not going to say, like, oh, one should never, um, you must rely on um, herbs or this. I mean, really is that God, God can say be and it is, and you can be healed without anything. Of course, don't take anything. And I give you an example that I had very high level of cat allergies, and I could not even enter in a house. Um, I wouldn't even know there was a cat or not, and I would break into hives. And sneezing, and like very high level. When they tested my allergy, it was like to the level 4 or 5, whatever the highest level is. And then my daughter, she really wanted to have a cat, and knowingly that mom would get very sick. I once she brought a cat and I got extremely sick, and asthma and whatnot, and I was on like 5 medications. So had to get rid of the cat, and obviously she was just crying and dying, and she's extremely a cat lover. And then recently, she, like few years ago, 5 years ago, she said, "No, I can't live without a cat. I'm gonna find a cat which hasn't, you will not get allergic to." So guess what? She brings a cat. 2, 3 days later, I'm sneezing and I'm just getting this and that. And at that time, she said, "This cannot be happening. This cannot be happening." She started to cry. And she said, Mom, let's pray." So we held hands and we prayed really hard from God. So, Sister Pamela, that day till today, now we have 2 cats. Allergy is gone. Gone. So, it really depends. Sometimes, you put all your trust, God says, sever all your ties. But then our conviction has to be so strong at the moment, right? This is the miracle I lived through, actually. And I am alive to tell the story. Masha Allah.
Mashallah, we love that
I
story.
know.
I
I
actually,
always share
I
it.
ac-
Hmm.
yeah, I actually remember that story. You as you go along life, things pop up, and then I remember that story.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sharing with other people too. So it's, I always, for me, and I like my own faith at times is not as strong. Like that day, like how we prayed, unbelievable. Yeah. God
Mashallah.
listens. God listens to prayers, subhanallah. I cannot believe. Like I, I was even in a study for cat allergy. Can you believe it? Yes, it was such a
Study?
high level.
Hmm.
Yeah. And like I wanted to get, I voluntarily, I'm like, okay, I want to get rid of my allergies forever. So there was a study. I put myself into it.
Yeah, it's like we read the Quran and then God show us the sign, God's listening.
Yeah, mashallah. Honestly, I feel like this sign was like, oh, when Abraham questioned God and said, God, I want to assure my heart. God does get, answers all the prayers and assures our heart. Sometimes we ignore to see that proof, proofs. I'm sure these kind of proofs are happening to everybody, you know. It's just one story. There are many, must be many stories on a daily basis sometimes. But sometimes we don't, kind of don't think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, mashallah.
Anybody else has any comments or questions? I know more people join
Not me,
us.
Salman.
More
You
people
did an
join.
awesome job.
Inshallah, thank you too. We have more people. We have Steve. We have Salãmun Alaykum. We have Huda and another person I don't know. We read
Assalamu
from
alaikum.
Surah. Salāmun Alaykum. We read from
Uh,
Surah 10, verse 26 through 58.
Actually, the other sister took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say about whatever medicine you take, the the point is acknowledging that only God can heal you. And as a submitter, we should do that. And I guess that's the difference between a submitter that believes in God and somebody that doesn't really have a religion, because they assume that the medicine they take will heal them. But as a submitter, we should acknowledge that it's God that heals us, and the medicine might be natural, might not be natural, but only if God wills it to heal us will it heal us. And actually, Rashad gives an example of this in one of his Quran studies. I think he gave some medicine to another submitter. He said, "Oh, this pill will help you, but he forgot to say God willing." And then
You said Bismillah. Forgot to tell him not to say Bismillah before he takes the medicine.
Sorry, yes. And so he talks about that. And it's actually quite funny because he then comes back into the room and asks the guy, "What did you do with the pill?" And the guy said, "I swallowed it." And he's like, "Oh no." But he's really very regretful for not saying Bismillah and not acknowledging that it's God that will heal you, not the pill in itself.
We know we have to say that, but a lot of times, we forget. But so when we do Quran study or someone remind us, it's a really good reminder.
Yes, I mean, certainly, you have to train yourself to say those things. I'm certainly not the best at it, and I'm slowly training myself, God willing. But yeah, you have to remind yourself and train yourself so you remember to do that.
Yes.
Okay. I know Huda hasn't spoken. We have to volunteer her to talk. She's really shy.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salaamun Alaykum, Huda. How are you?
Assalamu alaikum.
How are you?
Masha Allah. We can hear you from far, far away. Very
Far away.
little bit.
Oh, sorry.
Barely.
I just want to say Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Yeah. Huda, would you have some comments for us about these verses?
I just enjoying listening, Masha Allah.
Okay. I tried.
It's right. You did an awesome job. That's why Huda doesn't have any.
Masha Allah.
What verse did we get up to? Sorry.
58. $10.58.
Salman, what time is Aussie Quran study?
It's at 6 p.m. Pacific time,
Which is
right?
11 a.m. Australian time. Well,
PM Pacific.
Sydney time, should I say.
New Brunswick.
Where is everybody based in this Quran study session? Are you all based in the US?
I'm from Canada, New Brunswick.
So we have one sister from Toronto. We have one person from Morocco. I'm in LA, and Ahmed is in Sweden.
Oh, so it really is global.
Pamela in New Brunswick.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Very versatile.
Just need somebody from Antarctica or something.
I
It
think
will be
are we?
shivering.
Would I think Pamela, you would be closest to Antarctica. Is it towards east? Where is it though? Towards east
I
or?
have no clue. I'm only 1 hour's difference from you.
We're Atlantic time.
We're at the Atlantic time zone.
Maybe temperature-wise, you might be closest.
Yeah. Mountain time, right? Maybe so Calgary. It's towards Alberta in the middle. Antarctica should be going north, north, north from Alberta.
You guys are giving the wrong idea that I live in a winter country. We have a month and a half of summer.
Oh no!
Wow.
Oh, I know. This year, yeah, we had a long winter. Is it winter in Australia right now, Steve? Or New Zealand?
Yes, it's winter at the moment, yeah.
Mm,
But winter in Sydney is not too bad.
nice.
Well, it depends where you come from, I guess. Like, I've been to Toronto, and that's pretty cold for a New Zealander. Well,
Oh
it depends
gosh,
where in New Zealand you're from, but for me,
Toronto is
it's
cold
cold.
for everyone.
But then Australia's generally warmer than New Zealand, so winter, it
Oh,
gets a little bit cold in Australia, but not too bad.
Steve, if you're bicycling in Toronto in the wintertime, obviously,
I've done that. I've bicycled
obviously
in the
you will think
snow.
Toronto is cold.
you
I
know, like
cycled in the snow in the city at night. That was
avid
interesting.
cyclists in Toronto, city of Toronto, they're growing like crazy, and they winter or summer, they are on bikes in downtown Toronto. It's so crazy, actually, becoming very annoying. Yeah, like the traffic and then bicycles, you have to be extra careful. It's not fun to drive in downtown anymore.
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky to cycle in the snow.
Oh, yes.
But interestingly, I fell over just standing still on the footpath.
Oh, yeah. Haven't we all? Oh, God. I know. Getting into the car, I slipped and fell. Somebody I know, they broke their legs getting into the car and slipped.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, gosh, a lot of people.
I like to watch
Yeah,
those videos from Canada where all the cars are slipping down and crashing into one another.
yeah. People from California can brag.
Probably Californian drivers in Toronto.
Hey, Salma, we don't have forest fires.
What's that?
So we don't have forest fires, so we compensate in that way.
You guys don't
And
have earthquakes
earthquakes.
either.
No, we don't.
Apparently, the earthquakes are happening because I'm here. So.
Gosh. Mm, yeah, that is something, eh?
If someone
I've
said
heard like
someone said the
Mhm.
earthquakes are happening in LA because I'm here.
Oh my God. It never happened before. I guess so. We're all set then.
Ahmed's really quiet today, don't you guys think?
Yeah, Ahmed, what's going on?
Babysitting.
Is he?
Secret.
Are you babysitting
No.
your nephews and nieces?
No way.
No
The
way.
TV is babysitting them.
Oh no. Oh my god. Oh guys, don't forget to vote. Ahmad's Ahmad, I'm gonna do it today, inshallah. Is the link still there
Yeah.
for your paintings? So
Yes.
everyone, please support our brother here, and
I voted.
don't forget. You voted. I'm going to
Mhm.
do it right now.
He said he's gonna beat him up. Who doesn't vote? So I just voted.
Yeah, that's why I'm scared. Uh,
You know, Ahmed,
yeah, Pamela, did you vote?
the reason I didn't vote is because I'm not very artistic. So I said I was going to give Farah to judge it.
Oh,
So, God willing, yeah, God willing, I make stick person. So God willing, I will find artistic people in the house today and God willing have them vote.
all
Autistic or
right.
Inshallah.
artistic?
Artistic.
Artistic.
Artistic. So the link was where in United Submitters International. I have to.
No, it's on my
I
personal.
think it's on a personal
It's on
page.
your
Yeah.
personal. Okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
on my business and my personal.
Okay, I'm going there
Okay.
now. Inshallah.
What is this voting for? Sorry.
Oh, I think
It's a
he. Yeah,
contest.
go ahead.
It's a contest in the United States by a company that I'm affiliated with.
Mm.
And they basically have a contest where the winning paintings will be shown on billboards across the United States,
Oh wow.
throughout the country.
Okay. So, what did you paint? Can you paint anything, or is there any rules for the
No
competition?
rules. You can paint anything, and the painting with the most votes will be judged.
First, we have to join to vote, right? The community, the pixels.
No, you
You
just
have to
push.
sign up on the website. Yeah.
You have to sign up because I
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't
you
know.
have to sign up with your Facebook. You can do it with your Facebook or whatever.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Maybe if you can publish the link in the pen, then I can
Yeah.
vote.
Yeah, publish it on the general chat room.
Okay, I will,
God willing.
inshallah.
Yeah.
And Solomon can demand that everybody votes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you kick them out of the room.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'll virtually slap everyone.
Oh.
No, I saw the contest a few days ago, and I thought, why not? Why not participate? See what happens, inshallah.
Okay,
I
so
wanted to
yeah.
discuss, add to what I said earlier about verse
Mm-hmm.
27. I forgot to add it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The disbelievers, they don't read the Quran. I mean, we are reading the Quran, like not us, just us, but people who read the Quran. God is talking to them through the Quran, and God says, they believe, but they're going to hell. So I'm willing to go as far and say that even if you believe in God and all that stuff, you can only go to hell if you if you are an idol worshiper. Excuse the shouting in the background. Uh, is it too loud?
No, it's fine. It's
No,
very
no,
subtle.
I hope it's not too loud.
the TV
Maybe
babysitters stopped
if I
working.
angle the microphone this way, maybe. Maybe the TV broke. I don't know. Anyways, Rashad said, "You can't be a believer and then be an obnoxious person." Do you guys remember this video
Mhm,
when he made that
mhm,
comment? And he was
mhm.
talking to the believers. So what I'm trying to say is, a lot of believers or people who call themselves believers are reading the Quran, but they are obnoxious. Like they behave in evil ways. And going back to what I said earlier, on the day of judgment, their sins become obvious and they will feel embarrassed and realize that what they were doing was wrong. And that's why they are going to hell. And I'm going to bring up an example, a recent example that might be subtle and not that serious and whatever, but it is still bad behavior. And it's insignificant. It might seem insignificant. It's a small thing, but still it's a bad intention. It has bad evil intention behind it. And it is certain people who have gone to Suleiman's pen app and made bad reviews because they have personal issues with Suleiman.
Oh, the submission app of the
The
pen.
submission app. The intention behind the submission app is it has good intention to guide people, help people, be a good tool for the righteous to make their life easier. But then you have these people who are willing to lie and deceive other people to bring shame, like bad atmosphere or bad name to the submission app and to Solomon, the creator behind the app, just because they have personal issues or whatever. What's the intention behind that action if not evil? If that's not evil, what is evil? Why
And
is God saying they believe but they're going to hell? I mean, this is a small thing, of course, but still it shows the intention. How can you call yourself a believer and you have this bad behavior? I'm interrupting
these
someone.
people supposedly submitters.
Yeah, these people are calling
They're
themselves
not
submitters,
traditional Muslims or something.
but
No.
they're behaving like those
Okay.
evil people. For example, I criticized a certain group of people on Twitter, like the LGBT community, and I received so much hate, and they threatened to boycott my products, my books, and stuff. These submitters are behaving exactly like those people, Satan's
Mhm.
way.
Yeah.
And they're attacking his business, not his person. They're attacking his business, his way of income, his reputation, whatever. That's evil. It's evil intention. You can't call yourself a believer and you have evil intention. But anyways,
Yeah.
on the day of judgment, all of that will be exposed and people will be humiliated. Like, wow, wait, that was bad. I did act evil. That was bad. I did commit a sin. Like, nobody looks themselves in the mirror and say, yes, I am evil. Well, maybe there are such people, but most people will not realize they are evil
Mhm.
until it's too late on the day of judgment, and they realize that, oh wow, I didn't know I was evil.
So true. Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Do we even have
Yeah.
to wait the day of judgment for that to happen? Because it's like, I would think that that would they'll start getting retribution in this life too, isn't it?
Of course.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Of course, we recognize because the verse say humiliation is their lot, and we already see it in this world how they are humiliate themselves with this certain behavior. Oh, look at me, I'm gonna put a bad review, ha ha ha, and they snicker.
Right. And then
Snicker.
they, yeah, so I think just to give some context to Steve, so they actually not only did that, but I had shared with the same group of people, I had shared my actual code because I was trying to help this other person to kind of get a job. So just so he has something on his resume to say he worked on this app, I
Oh,
shared my code with him so he can help with me and build some of parts of it. I was
yeah.
just really like kind of like babysitting him in a way, like just, you know, like spoon feeding him to just build certain parts of the app just so he can put it in his resume. And so this person ended up from the same group, whatever. So they ended up just taking my code and just releasing it under their name as their own app, basically. And then
Oh, wow.
these people, yeah, yeah, and they just went and booed my app, sent bad reviews here, and then went on his app link, and then you just gave really positive reviews and everything. So
Wow.
yeah, these are all the same
Oh.
people. These are the people because of the circumcision thing, basically. It's
Is it all
all
because of that? Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Because I must admit, I only joined Facebook for to join the submitter groups. Otherwise, I had no interest in joining Facebook
Right.
for my own reasons.
Hmm.
But I was shocked when I first joined because I saw some of the behavior on there was pretty terrible, and
Hmm.
the attacks I've seen on you are
Hmm.
shocking actually. And
Right.
what the other brother said is true. Like these people making the
Hmm.
attacks, the supposedly submitters, and they don't realize that
Hmm.
it reflects worse on them than on you.
Yeah. Hmm.
Even even if there was a 1% truth in what they're saying,
Hmm.
it still
Right.
looks terrible for them. And
Yeah.
they sort
But
of
see, the
gang
thing
up.
is,
They seem to be ganging up
yeah.
on you as well.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. For them, Satan does adorn it in their eyes. They're like, oh, we're fighting for the truth against this enemy and whatever. And the funny thing is that everything you do then is justified, and they all like back each other up, which is kind of a scary thing to be in that position where you know every, everybody's on your side when you're doing bad things. Like nobody will say, hey, I think you're doing something wrong.
mm, mm,
It's a perfect company to take you to hell.
mm. Yeah, no, it's quite astonishing actually. I was I was quite shocked when I first joined Facebook. I was like, wow, all these submitters and they're arguing
Yeah.
with each other. But really, the attacks on you were really terrible, and the fact that they seem to be ganging up and egging each other on,
Hmm.
and they didn't realize that what they were saying was quite terrible, and it looked
Yeah.
bad, looked worse for them than for you actually.
Hmm.
And like what God says in the Quran, they don't realize their actions.
The way my husband and I saw it was Salomon was fighting in the cause of God, but they were doing personal attacks, so which we see was uncalled for. And that was the issues that we had. Like, why do personal attack? He's fighting in the cause of God. He's not bringing anybody's personal business in it.
Mm,
Why are you holding out on him personally?
mm,
So that was very, we find it was kind of like turn off. Yeah. Why are you attacking him
Right.
personally?
Hmm.
yeah,
Well, that's
I
what
didn't
happens.
I didn't
Sorry.
know the background, so I didn't know if there was some, I don't know, personal history or something. So, but I didn't realize that was personal attacks, but solely because of the circumcision thing. I thought maybe there was some other history or something, but even then, it didn't justify it. It just
Hmm.
maybe it could shed some context on the issue, but I didn't realize it was not for personal reasons.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, God says, "Do not be saddened by their utterances. All power belongs to God. He's the hero omniscient." Actually, I just looked at my Quran while you were saying it. It's the upcoming verse in for the next study, uh, and verse 65. Well, I'm gonna read it actually, part of it. It's kind of related to verse 58. Verse 58 says, "Joy for the believers." It says, "With God's grace and with His mercy, they shall rejoice. It's far better than any wealth they can accumulate." And then, so similar thing we see a few verses later. God says in 62, "Happiness now and forever, absolutely. God's allies have nothing to fear, nor will they grieve. There are those who believe and lead a righteous life. For them, joy and happiness in this world as well as in the hereafter. This is God's unchangeable law. Such is the greatest triumph." And it says, "Do not be saddened by their utterances. All power belongs to God. He is the hero, the omniscient." Uh,
The greetings.
So, I mean, these things I think are good because first it incriminates these people who deserve that, and then at the same time, you know, I know we know that if you're persecuted, in the cause of God, that actually, you get more credit. So that's a good
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
You
yeah.
get
So it's sort of
they're helping me.
yeah, it's a double whammy for them and it's double credit for
Yeah,
you, sort of. It's
mashallah. Hmm.
interesting, eh?
When all these things are going on, right? It's like you seek refuge, what God says in the Quran. God is seer of everything they do. And yeah, that's how I see it. God is seer of everything they do.
Hmm. Ultimately, the truth prevails. So,
Mm, mm.
I just
So
thought it was.
actually, I'm going to be signing off now. Alhamdulillah, great Quran study.
Okay. Thank you, mashallah.
Okay. Yeah, from me
Thank you.
too, mashallah. Thank you, Salaman.
Thank you,
Thanks
guys,
for all
mashallah.
your praise be to God. All
Thank you,
that.
mashallah, for joining. And thank you, Pamela, for all your
Assalamu alaikum.
questions. And thank you, Nila. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, actually, I can stop the YouTube broadcast at this point. So thank you guys for joining us for this study. For those who are on YouTube, our next study, God willing, is going to be on. Well, there's a study tonight. Well, but that's not going to be on YouTube, but it's on the pen. If you're on the pen, it's going to be at 6 p.m. Pacific time in the ANZ channel. But for those who are on YouTube, God willing, our next YouTube broadcast will be on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time. God bless you guys. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.